I'm always staggered by the incredible array of countries that we have. Just looking through the chat, we have people from Argentina, Brazil, the Philippines, Slovakia, Kuwait, Lithuania, Ireland, Cyprus, Greece, Italy, Germany. It really is a wonderful, it's wonderful to see so many of you here today. Especially, of course, given the current circumstances, which I think pretty much all of us are being affected by. So I'm sure there's lots on our minds. So the fact that we are still here and wanting to develop as teachers is a really positive thing. So as Emily said, we will be trying to make this webinar as interactive as possible through polls and using the chat box as well as using the hand up icon throughout. So let's make a start, right? So online on trend, benefits of online learning for young learners. I think nowadays there is a propensity and expectation for courses to include some elements of online learning, even for young learners. I think for adults, for university level students, there is absolutely 100% need for that. But more and more, there is that need for young learners as well. However, from my kind of observations, from research, once a decision has been made to use an online learning platform or virtual learning environment, there is often a lack of love from teachers in using them due to their complexities, reliabilities, their vagaries. But it doesn't always have to be that way. So during this session, we will look at the benefits of using young learner or online platforms with young learners, as well as how we can use them to increase student motivation, engagement, and also connect with parents as well. But before we do any of that, I have a very quick poll for you to start things off. Very simple. I currently use some kind of online platform with my young learner class. Are you a yes or are you a no? Does WhatsApp count? I would suggest not, Bianca. Okay, there's lots of you typing in the chat box, which is great, but please try and vote in the poll if you can. Well, people from USA as well. Wow, amazing. I'm going to start broadcasting these results so you can see them. So actually, currently it's a 50-50 split. Amazing. Fantastic. That never happens. Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Okay, so that's quite interesting. So it's pretty much a 50-50 split there. 50.8 versus 49 point something or other. So that's good to know. So hopefully for those who are currently using, you'll get some ideas, as well as for those who aren't currently using any kind of online platform with other young learners. Hopefully we can inspire you to do so in the future. Okay, so this is what we're going to be looking at, a brief agenda. We're going to look at this idea of blended learning and effective learning platforms. Then we're going to look at maybe what barriers there are that prevent teachers from using them more often. And then we're going to look at the benefits as well. So, blended learning. This is kind of the key thing here. I think we need to consider what actually it means. Because that's essentially what we're doing. You know, of course, traditionally we're looking at classroom time and the online learning. Of course, in the current environment that has changed slightly, but hopefully what will happen after coronavirus that situation has been resolved and we go back into the classroom, hopefully we can combine what we've learned from teaching online with what we are doing in the classroom. And that's a good way of thinking about this situation. It's a good way for us as teachers who maybe haven't used online platforms before to see how we can use them and then apply that back in the classroom once things get back to normal. So what exactly is blended learning? And it's an interesting question because everybody thinks they know the answer. But you ask lots of different people and they all give a slightly different answer, which naturally serves to highlight the fact that it does mean different things to different people. And when I was putting this webinar together, it's a question I asked different people, and there was lots of variety within it. So I'm going to give you a little poll to do, and it's this. Is blended learning, is it A, a combination of methodologies, B, a combination of face-to-face and online teaching, is it a combination of technologies, or is it all of the above? So we'll do another poll just to see what you think. So, is blended learning, which of these is it for you? And I should say, as you're voting, there isn't necessarily a right answer or a wrong answer. It's very much a personal opinion, but it can be quite subjective. Again, a lot of you writing in the chat box the answers, please vote in the poll. It's easier for us to gather that data and for me to see what you're all thinking. So please stop typing in the chat box and put your answers in the vote, in the poll. Okay. A lot of you have voted. Over 400 have voted. Wow, good voting, guys. Jamie says my voice sounds like Schwarzenegger. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, Jamie. Okay, so look, I'm going to end the poll, and we can see there that 300 of you, or 68%, have voted that it's all of the above. 22% have said it's a combination of face-to-face and online teaching. 25 or 5% said a combination of methodologies, and 12 of you said a combination of technologies. I think for me personally, it is probably all of the above, but I would sort of manage that with the point that actually it's B as well. It's more of a focus on B, that the combination of face-to-face and online teaching. And that online teaching can be a combination of methodologies and technologies as well. So D, but a real focus on B is what I would suggest is the answer to it. So it involves using different technology, and it's involving the internet and combining that with what they're doing in the classroom. So it's both inside and outside the classroom. And by virtue of using technology, we're already combining different methodologies. But if we were to ask the experts, they would say it's B. And this is a nice quote by Stoker. It's a time, or blended learning is any time a student learns at least in part at a supervised brick and mortar location, away from home, and at least in part through online delivery with some element of student control over time, place, path, and pace. So that sounds fine, but how do we really apply that in the young learner classroom? Does it work as a model? My answer to that is absolutely yes, it can do, but you need to have the appropriate platform and, I guess, the appropriate training for teachers as well. So I asked you earlier about using online technology, and some of you said yes, you do, some of you don't. But how do you actually feel about using online platforms to facilitate a blended classroom? How does it make you feel? Does it make you feel really happy? You feel confident about it? Or does it scare you? Are you a zero? So again, another very quick poll. I'm enjoying my polls today. So thank you for typing in the chat box, but please vote as well. How do you feel about using them? And as we go, I'm going to broadcast as we go along. Thank you, Katia. Yeah, if you can vote in the poll, that would be helpful. Okay, good. We're seeing a very positive response here, which is excellent to see. I'd say the majority is sort of in that sort of 7, 8, 9 bracket. Although there's quite a few 10s out there, which is great to see. Alan suggests it depends on choice of software. Absolutely, of course it does. There are lots of mitigating factors, and we're going to sort of deal with that in a moment. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. The yellow. I think, yeah, the vast majority are within the 7, 8, 9 bracket. I think the winner there is the 28% is the 8th, which, like I say, is very good for you guys. And it's good to see that you're so open and confident with using online content or using online learning platforms, VLEs. But I thought it'd be interesting to kind of see what are the barriers? Why do people and teachers, a lot of teachers, feel this kind of negative attitude towards them, this barrier? And we identified 5 potential barriers to using online learning platforms, learning management systems. So, lots of ideas coming in there. Sumendra, great. I think all those things are perfect. I'm going to start with the first one, which is awareness. I think, or rather, a lack of awareness. In other words, capabilities of what an LMS can do, how it can help your students, and how it can help your teaching. In one study back in 2014, it found quite a lot of evidence that backs up the idea that with increased perception of usefulness comes an increased usage. And I think that's a really important fact. If you know what it can do and the capabilities of it, you're going to be more open to it. Of course you are. So it's having that, I think someone mentioned in the chat box there, this familiarity with it as well. Second thing it points out is this idea of usability. It seems obvious, but what proves difficult to use is not often seen as very useful. So it has to be easy to use. And a lot of systems can be overcomplicated. And some teachers, if they see it's too complicated, they're going to shy away from it. I think that's especially important in the circumstances we find ourselves now, that when you are teaching online, you need to identify a platform that works well for you, that you are comfortable with. And Kareem is right. You cannot trust technology 100%. Of course you can't. But in the circumstances we have now, that is one way we have to deal with, one thing we have to deal with. But when we're having a blended classroom, when we've got that in the classroom action as well as the online input and practice, then we have a good combination there. But the point we're trying to make here is that online learning platforms have to be user-friendly, or as user-friendly as possible, because there are lots of people that have to use them. The schools, the teachers, the students, the parents. So there's 4 categories of users there, and it has to be equally accessible for all of them. So that's number 2. Number 3 is training and support. A lack of training and support is, of course, a big issue. If you want someone to use an online learning platform, an LMS, a VLE, then of course they need to have the appropriate training and support. Not everyone is a technophile. There are lots and lots of technophobes out there. And it's not enough if they only learn how to click around the LMS and don't actually know how to improve their class activities with it. And that's the key thing, is seeing how you can use it to improve your teaching. And as a consequence, hopefully, improve your students' learning as well. And there's one interesting study back in 2012 that discovered that 43% of teachers indicated that they would use more features if someone were actually to show them how to use it. Conversely, though, 35% of teachers said they didn't have enough time. It would take too long to learn how to use it. And my argument to that would be, well, it might take a long time to learn how to use it, but once you know how to use it, it's going to save you so much time. So training is super important. Number 4 is this idea of motivation and reinforcement. So some research suggests that when teachers build activities in and around a learning management system with a number of benefits and rewards, the students were more motivated to use the online learning platform. So it's absolutely key that built within it, there is that reward, there is that motivating factor behind it. And that comes back to getting the teachers trained appropriately. You need to have buy-in from everybody. And all of these things, all of these points will help, raising awareness, a good usability factor, more training. It all develops that motivation. The final point is this idea of time constraints. Again, it seems counterintuitive for a system that means they're meant to save time, but the majority of research in the field suggests that the time restraints were considered to be a significant barrier to using LMSs as an online platform. In fact, one research project found that a third of teachers felt they didn't have enough time to learn to use the LMS effectively. And then, of course, to be able to upload, add material, assign material. But again, for me, it's like with anything in life. You have to learn how to do something first before you can apply it appropriately. And of course, the more you use something, the better you get, the faster you get. And it will have that knock-on effect or knock-on impact on your students. And as Carolina points out, of course, with the schools closing because of coronavirus, this is absolutely vital to have an effective online platform where you can connect with learners, give them work. When they can't come into class to see you, you cannot survive without it. So in many ways, the current situation is giving teachers the kick that they need to develop, because they have to. They don't have that choice. But we're still thinking in our situation here whereby we're looking at how can we use the online platform to support what's happening in class. Okay, Bianca, can I recommend one? We're going to kind of come on to that, don't worry. Okay, but let's look at some of the benefits, all right? So just in the chat box very quickly, can you type down what you think are some of the benefits of using an effective online learning platform? How can it help? Again, Virginia makes a good point. Some children don't have access to computers at home. Of course, as teachers, you know what facilities you have and whether or not these platforms can work for you or not. Okay, motivation, games, entertaining, attractive to students, quick feedback. Wow, coming very quickly, thick and fast. No commuting. It can be interactive, lots of interactive face-to-face. Wow, increased motivation. Students feel more, has too much coming through. It's too quick, too much to read. Good, Maya. Independence, individual needs are met. Okay, convenience, comfortable, perfect. Lots of great ideas. And I'm just going to explore some of these, not all of these, but some of them I will explore throughout the rest of the session. So, why make the effort of having an online learning platform? Well, this is why. And for me, I don't want to put these in, these are not done in any order of importance, I should say. I think they're all equally important in their own right. And the first one being is that it extends learning beyond the classroom. It provides the opportunity to extend learning at home. And therefore, it allows students to work at their own pace, at their own level, and at a time appropriate to them. And I think this is super important, especially with something like English. English as a subject is not something that they can just leave school and forget about, because they will be meeting English in their everyday life. It's a skill that it's a life skill rather than a subject. And if we can take learning outside the classroom and get them having more connections, more input in the English language, surely that can be a good thing. Because let's face it, how many hours of English lessons do they have per week with a teacher? 2, maybe 3 hours, depending on the age, but not huge amounts, right? Yeah, Lloyd's saying 2, 3, 4. So it's not huge amounts. And so, of course, students are maybe not going to progress at the rate that we want them to with that sort of little amount of contact. Therefore, we need to be able to give them content outside of class to do. And it takes English into the real world. So, having online practice books, having a platform whereby you can assign additional tasks, where you can give them additional content is really, really important. And on top of all of that, like I said, it gives students that sense of control. And then controlling your own learning process is an essential part of effective learning. And like I said already, it makes learning English more than just a school subject. It makes it a life subject. And there are various things, of course, using an online platform, we can give certain specific activities to them. But of course, we can add in extra content as well. We can direct them to appropriate links, websites, etc., which we'll explore a little bit later. So it extends learning beyond the classroom. It takes it into the real world. And as part of that, it also increases parents' involvement. And there's many arguments that involving parents in child's education is absolutely vital. Hopefully, most parents take an interest in what their students are doing at school, but some maybe don't. But this is a sort of quote from a report done in the United States. And it says, to increase student learning, family engagement must be treated as rigorously as any other key educational strategy. Nowadays, most learning management systems have a set of predefined roles, including a role for a parent, especially for young learners who can log into the system to check their child's attendance, to track their grades, and to communicate with the teacher. And so what it does, it helps to build better parent-teacher student relationships. And therefore, it achieves more effective communication and parents' involvement with the students' learning. And this is really important because parents are our children's, our students' primary or first educator. Therefore, it makes perfect sense to keep them involved in their learning process. Keeping them in the loop, involving them in that learning journey is so important. And all the more so in the 21st century because so many changes have happened in education. If you think about your children's parents now, their education was very, very different. Education has changed. The way we teach, the content that we use is different. Therefore, this connection with parents is super important to help them understand the learning process. And someone says, yeah, of course it would be great if we get parents' involvement. This is just one way in which we can help it. It's quick, it's easy, it's online, it's on their phones, it's on their laptops, it's on their tablets. It's very easy to make those connections now with parents, whereas in the past, maybe the only connection they had was at a parent-teacher meeting once a term. This way, we keep parents in the loop. And for me, that's a massive benefit of an online learning platform. Not only does it have benefits for the family, the parents, it has benefits on the students. So this is some research taken by the Southwest Educational Development Laboratory in the United States. They identified a number of key benefits of parental involvement in children's education. First of all, the research suggested that when parents are involved, there are higher grades and test scores. That's not to say that parents are helping the students at home too much. This is actually in the school environment. Okay, Miriam, yeah, I mean, of course, some students do not have internet in their homes. Absolutely, you're right. But that's not to say that this can't be done within a school learning environment, within, a learning center or learning lab, computer lab, etc. High grade test scores. Number 2, apparently there is better school attendance and homework completion rates because parents are involved. Students are aware of this, therefore they're going to attend better at school. Okay, Stephen, that's a really good question here. How do we get that to happen when the parent and the student will only participate it during the class? I mean, it's a really tough question. I think it's getting that kind of that connection or building those relationships, but also getting some kind of contract, like kind of class contract, like you do with a student, about how you can get your parents involved, showing them the benefits it'll have for their children. And I think as soon as you see a benefit of something, you're more likely to do it. So, for example, on a non-educational example of that, my friend has recently become vegetarian, and I questioned this, but then he gave me a whole list of the benefits of what it meant to be vegetarian for him, and it made me question myself. Well, maybe I should maybe be part vegetarian, 3 days a week or something. So as soon as you see the benefits of something, there's more buy-in, and if you get that buy-in, then hopefully we can increase that participation from the parents. But we're being sidetracked. Number 3, research suggests that there are also improved social skills and behavior, which allow students to acclimatize better to school environments because there is more interaction. And finally, research suggests there is also higher self-esteem. And maybe that's because students feel better about what they're doing, they have the support of their parents. But just as there are benefits for students, there are also benefits for parents, according to this research. Because parents are working with their parents, there's more interaction. And therefore, they're more sensitive and to their children's emotional and intellectual and educational needs. Okay, Sarida's gone into very young learners. I mean, that's a whole different kettle of fish. I think using this kind of thing online with young learners, very young learners, that's a separate webinar, I'm afraid, and one I'm not maybe in a position to answer right now. Just going back to benefits for parents, it can also help give students, it can help give parents more confidence in their parenting abilities because they're being involved. It gives them a better understanding of the curriculum of the school and also the teacher's role. And it gives them the opportunity for more positive reinforcement because the more that they know about the developmental stages of their children's education, then the greater understanding they're going to have. So, just to kind of sum that up, really, I'm trying to find the quote I've got here. Hang on. Ooh, I apologise. Let's just go back a bit. Okay, so what this also does for parents is we can get them to collaborate with parents in terms of the parents can have access to the online learning platforms, right? So here, this is a screenshot taken from National Geographic Learning's Look program, where parents have access to all of the activities that children have done. They can see the scores, they can see how long they've taken to do it, they can see the amount the percentage that they've done as well. And so because parents have got that access, there's a greater clarity of what they are achieving or what their children are achieving in school. And therefore, it's heightening that interest in their progress. So this, like I said, this is taken from a National Geographic Learning Young Learner program called Look. And it's a really nice online platform in which parents have this access. But it also gives the teachers the opportunity to communicate directly with parents. So for these kind of systems, young learners, they don't have their own email, so the email is the parents. Therefore, it allows the teacher to email the parents, allowing them to keep them up to date on students in class progress, but also importantly to offer advice on how they can support their children's learning at home. And for me, I think it's so important that teachers give parents advice. Parents are not teachers. They don't know what's best for their children in terms of learning. Therefore, the teachers need to reinforce that through contact with the parent through emails. So in that respect, parents must work with the children on academic topics. And another way of doing that is through using homeschool connection letters, like this one here. So it's giving the teacher the platform of how they can communicate with their parents and tell the parents what we are doing in class this week, this month, this term, as well as giving them additional home activities. So it's reinforcing, it's strengthening that bond. And okay, yes, this letter is in English, but they can be edited into different languages where necessary through the LMS or the online learning platform. And it just, like I said, it just reinforces that bond. And as David says, it is available in different languages as well. Of course it is, because of course many parents don't speak English. So yes, these letters, these emails can be formats are in different languages. So just to sum up that point about the parent learning, a quote by Jane D. Hull. At the end of the day, the most overwhelming key to a child's success is the positive involvement of parents. And if that's a message that we can share with the parents of your students at school, that is something which is absolutely key to student success. And there is a huge amount of empirical research that substantiates this quote. It's not just a random thing to say, there is empirical research that backs it up. So, online learning platforms, they help develop those connections with parents. Okay, number 3, let's move on. A lot of you mentioned this earlier. It increases learner engagement, but also participation and motivation. Because online learning is a sensational experience. It involves all the different senses in many ways. There's the ability to incorporate multimedia, podcasts, webcasts, games, activities, all of the things that Generation Z like doing. Therefore, the likelihood of students getting bored is very slim. And the various channels for delivering learning creates a very stimulating learning experience for the students. You know, from my experience, a lot of students, they don't like going to school. They see it as boring and not interesting. They'd rather be at home playing on their phones, tablets, computers. So by combining that love of technology with learning, surely that can only be a good thing. So, for example, games, and especially if they're optimized for tablets and phones, they are something that students can just pick up and do, and it's enjoyable for them. It's something that they can do multiple times because there's that challenge. It's kind of like gamification of learning. You want to do better than you did than the previous time. So therefore, the lines between learning and fun become blurred. And just as an example of that, my daughter is 6 years old. She's at school. And not every day, but most days, we will sit and play games together on the phone that are helping her with her math skills, her English skills, and so on, her reading, her writing, her spelling especially. And she really, really, really enjoys it. Now, she doesn't necessarily know that she's learning because it's a game. It's challenging herself. Therefore, whenever you have an online learning platform, it should involve not just, practice activities, it should involve games as well. And these examples here are taken from the online learning platform for Our World, 2nd edition. But also a really big part of it is making sure that the students are rewarded. So especially for young learners, we know young learners, they thrive on praise. So building in awards, things like that, on the successful completion of activities, makes it more motivating for those young learners. They want to earn the award as a mark of their progress, and therefore they're more likely to stick with it. So with this particular one here, they have to, they've managed their progress, or they can view their progress by the pictures becoming slowly uncovered. So we can see here they've completed all of that one, they've revealed that picture. This one, they haven't yet started on yet. This one, they're halfway through. So they want to reveal the picture. They want to know what's next. They want to know what's under it. So they are more likely to return and do it again and again and again. Okay, Marcel makes a really good point there. Of course, there should be a balance between games and explicit teaching. Absolutely, there should be. But I think that the explicit teaching comes primarily within the classroom environment, and that is reinforced by the activities outside of the classroom delivered through an online learning platform. Okay, moving on quickly. Arguably, this might be the most important one. Online learning platforms, LMSs, easily track learner progress and performance because they grant access to unlimited tracking data, such as the time spent completing assignments or tests or on games. You can download statistics. You can download the latest activities, the learning paths, etc., depending on the learning management system that you have. Okay, so there's a huge amount of data, and it allows you to maximize the effectiveness of your teaching. In fact, the best learning management systems give you the ability to keep track of your learner progress and ensure that they are meeting their performance milestones. So, you know, if a student is maybe not doing as well as they should be, you can come into it and contact them and give them extra practice, help them, give them the extra support that they need. So, for example, here, you can give feedback straight away as well. You know, often when you give homework, written homework, they hand it back and they hand it to you, and a week later you give it back to them, which isn't particularly helpful, let's say. What they need is that immediate feedback so that they can go and do it again and improve straight away. So it eradicates that wait time that you'd normally get. Because by the time you get back to it normally, you might have forgotten what you'd written or why you'd written it. But with online learning, quizzes, assessments, they're integrated into the platform and you get that feedback immediately. And it allows you as a teacher to analyze results, see which questions students got wrong, and then you can address those issues in the class. And that's kind of the key thing here. What should teachers do with this data? They have all of this information from the LMS. What do they do with it? Well, the simple answer is to use it as you would do with any homework results, and that it should be used to inform your future teaching. It might be that you use it to identify areas in which all students are struggling, and therefore you adjust your teaching to it. Or maybe it can be used just to give additional support to individual students who are struggling with specific areas of language, whether it's grammar, vocabulary, writing, etc. In other words, it should be used as part of formative assessment, because that's exactly what it is. The data can be used to set up, plan, platform work in a way for a student that will support them in the class, but also at home. So what exactly is formative assessment? Well, it's using information and applying it within the classroom. According to Trish Martin, it's one of the most powerful and impactful methods for improving student learning ever studied. So surely, if you have all this data, you should be using it in a positive way. Because if you use it appropriately, it does become powerful, it does become impactful. So, we see that quote, okay, maybe I agree with it, maybe I don't. Maybe you think there are other things which are more powerful, more impactful. That's fine. But why formative assessment? Why does it play such an important role, and how does it link to online learning platforms? Well, first of all, it makes student progress more visible. And if it's more visible, it's also more accurate as well. Because you know how many times a student's taken a test, You can see how they've done on each one. You can see how long they've spent on it. You get a much, much clearer view of student progress. What it also does, it gauges learning on a regular basis. Because students have access to the online learning platforms all the time, it becomes more regular. It's not just once a week, let's say. You can continually be adding content or giving content to students to do. So it's continuous rather than stop and start. Therefore, it's more regular. And by virtue of that as well, it gives a more detailed overview of the student's ability. Because you're not just doing one test at the end of a school year, or end of a term, or end of a half term, you're getting it all the way along. So it's because of that regularity of it, you get a clearer picture of where a student is at. And as Nicaea says, it allows the teacher to intervene throughout the course, not just at the end. It allows for immediate and personalized feedback rather than just the whole class. Really importantly, it allows for remedial work, reteaching, reassessing. And for me, this is probably the key thing. It's not just assessing what has been learnt, it's assessing what will be learnt as well. So we see that they've all made an error on certain questions. We're going to reteach it, we're going to reassess it going forward. And we can give them the same task, and hopefully they do it better the second time. It increases learner engagement because students know that, I remember when I was at school, I always wanted to know what my score was. And I hated waiting for homework to be given back. I wanted it straight away. So through formative assessment, through the online learning platform, you have higher learner engagement. Okay, and also students get this feedback quickly. It increases their awareness of their own strengths and weaknesses. There's no point in telling a student that they have a weakness in a certain skill at the end of a school year, at the end of a teaching unit. They need to know as they go along. And formative assessment, using the content from an online learning platform, allows them to do this. Okay, a lot of you mentioning here things like Quizlet, Kahoot, Mentimeter. These are all great ways for doing formative assessment, absolutely. And the final thing really, why formative assessment? It enables teachers to reflect on their own teaching. What is working in their classroom? What is not working in the classroom? And using that content, using the statistics from an online learning platform can allow them to do this on a more regular basis. Okay, are there any drawbacks to formative assessment? Apparently not. If it's done correctly, that is. So if formative assessment is done correctly, there are no disadvantages to the student. Yes, it might mean a little bit more work for the teacher, but because we're doing this in tandem with an online learning platform, it means that you have all of the information that you need. Therefore, yes, it can be time consuming. Absolutely, it can be paraskevi. But when you have the information through an online learning platform, it helps a little bit. It makes your job easier because you know what you have to teach and how you can help your students. And here's just one example. So, this is a class, we have all their results, and we can see 4 students have not done particularly well. The teacher can go in, they can see which questions they're getting wrong, they analyze it, and then they can either address that issue as a whole class, or they can give additional worksheets, practice activities to those students. Okay. Online learning platforms can also facilitate the flipped classroom, which again, if we in the current situation, this is kind of what we're doing a lot of the time anyway. We're giving students a lot of online work. What is the flipped classroom? Well, hopefully we all have an awareness of what it is, but essentially it's making sure that there is time in class for all of the fun stuff, the communication, the practice, the activities, the projects. So before class, for homework, we can get students to do online activities. That might be some test kind activities for grammar, for vocabulary, and then they can come to class and they can apply that in a more communicative way. And then after class, using the online learning platform, the LMS, they can check their understanding and extend their learning going forward. But all of this is facilitated by an effective, user-friendly online learning platform. So they do it at home, they do it in the classroom, they do it at home. But it all comes through that learning management system. So, what are the pros and cons of this? Very quickly. First of all, it speaks the language of today's students. They're used to doing stuff online. We as teachers may not be, but students are. They spend their life online, even from a very young age. It helps students of all abilities to excel because it allows them to study at their own rate. It increases student-teacher interaction within the classroom, and that's really important. It's less teacher talk time, more learner focused. And as such, it allows teachers to get to know their students a bit better as well, because there's more time to build those relationships. And it increases student-student interactions because it's in class, they're working together. And it allows for differentiation. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I'm running out of time. And also the changes involve parents as well. And we sort of talked about that earlier. What are the cons? It can create or exacerbate digital divide. So a lot of you said earlier, a lot of people don't have internet. They don't have the facilities. So yeah, absolutely, it can create that issue there. I'm trying to keep on top of the chat as well. There is significant work on the front end from the teacher, but not if you have a great online learning platform where you can just assign work that's already pre-made, it's pre-built, and you send it to the students. It does rely on preparation and it does rely on trust with the students to do the work. And you could argue that time in front of screens instead of people and places is increased, which in this day and age, our children, our students, they probably have too much screen time already. But it can be effective at the same time. Interesting, Yolanda says that she prefers online teaching to face-to-face teaching. Okay, well, that's good to know. That's good in this current climate. That's really good to know. Okay, so look, how might this work in reality? Okay, so imagine that we want to do a little bit of flipped classroom with our young learners. And we can do this through the online learning platform. So you have all of your students registered in your class. You can email them all as a whole. So you create your message. What are we going to put into it? The subject, message. So it might be that you want to create content yourself, okay, first of all. Maybe you want to give them a very short grammar presentation that you've made by yourself. How can we do this? There are lots of platforms in which you can create your own videos. Here include Present Me, I've used before, Screencast-O-Matic, EduCreations, Nearpod, 9 Slides. These all allow you to create your own videos, which you can then post to your students. You can post on the LMS, or you can give a link to the learners to get to, okay? So thereby, you're essentially doing the grammar presentation at home, so that when they come to class, they have an awareness. They are ready for what they're going to do in class. For example, it might be a video of you or me doing a pre-recorded version of the talk, for example. Or it might just be that you using the classroom presentation tool that you're using in class anyway, and doing a very short snapshot of that with your video. So you can still see there's the video of me teaching the grammar point, teaching the vocabulary, and you give that to students to do at home. Or you can also add links into external websites as well. So this is the British Council Young Learners website, Learn English Kids. If you haven't used this one, lots of great stuff on there, loads of great content. And it's just a case of copying the link and cutting and putting it into the email to the parents. That is then, of course, backed up by the assignment work through the online learning platform. So this is another example taken from National Geographic Learning's Look program, whereby you can assign as much homework as you want to reinforce the videos, the content that you've given them already. And then you write your email. So watch the video on this page and then complete the assignments that have been set via the online learning platform. So essentially what it's doing is just facilitating the whole learning process. It makes it much smoother, much easier for everybody involved, the teachers, the students, the parents. Okay. And does it work? Absolutely it does work. So these are some quotes taken from students at a high school in Italy, in a school in Italy rather, just commenting on why they like this idea of a flipped classroom. So just read a couple of them out. I like the flipped classroom because I don't need to ask the teacher to repeat, which is embarrassing in front of the class. Because you've created a video, you've sent it to them, they've watched it by themselves multiple times if needs be. At home, we're in control. We can rewind whenever we want, but only if we need. So that's if a video has been used. And that's the key thing is we're in control. That's the thing that students want. They don't want to feel that pressure of the classroom. And the flipped classroom or the online learning, the asynchronous learning situation allows for that. And it's all in support of what happens in the classroom, face to face. It gives students that opportunity to be or to spend the classroom time in a more productive fashion. That's just a sort of a few ways in which we can and utilize an effective online learning platform. The last point I want to make is not so much practical, but more ecological. Online learning platforms are green. E-learning is paperless. It protects the environment. And there's a study recently done in the United States that people who are doing sort of online learning courses consume 90% less power, created less CO2 emissions. So just sort of thinking about that, think about how much homework you give to learners when you give them a photocopied worksheet, right? How many worksheets do you give to your students for homework every week? It's probably a scary number, right? So just maybe think about your class. Maybe you've got a class of 30 and you teach 6 different classes and each day you give them one piece of photocopied homework to do. How much paper are you wasting? A lot. No one's going to type in here, right? And they're too embarrassed to say how much paper they waste, but a huge amount, right? So as soon as you take the homework, the learning at home online, you are saving the environment. Okay, and it's a little thing, yes, but I think in this day and age, it's something that we should be aware of. So, just to sum up very briefly, we can use online learning platforms, learning management systems, VLEs, whatever you want to call them, to extend learning beyond the classroom. Give them that opportunity to learn more in their own time. It can increase that parental involvement if you so want that to happen. And I think we should want it to happen because it will help the students along the way. It can increase learner engagement, participation, and motivation, not just inside the classroom, but outside it as well. And let's face it, we all want our learners to be engaged and motivated and participating. It easily tracks learner progress and performance. And like I said, you can argue that this is the most important one in this day and age because we need to have a constant hold on or constant awareness of where our students are at. And this is what OLPs allow us to do. And in turn, it facilitates formative assessment for our students. We can take that data and we can use it to inform our learning going forwards. It facilitates that flipped classroom scenario should you so wish. You can give them information at home to do at home, and then you come to class and they are able to participate more and do more communicative tasks. And then finally, the last point there, it was green. Think about the environment as well. You are saving the planet by using online learning platforms. And yes, of course, it won't work in every scenario because there are places in the world that don't have the internet connection. There are families who don't have computers that facilitate this process. But moving forwards, hopefully the world becomes more of a equal place and opportunities are open to all learners wherever they are in the world. So thank you ever so much for your time. It's been very much appreciated. I know that you all have busy lives and it's a stressful time at the moment with everything that's going on. But if you do have any questions, I can try and answer them in the chat box. It's difficult to keep track because there are so many of you typing. And we've had over 800 people during the session, which is phenomenal. So thank you. So, Emily's just pulled me over that. Okay, so like I say, all of the examples today were taken from either National Geographic Learning's online learning platform for Look or for Our World second edition. And I'm sure Emily will provide a link for both of those in the chat box or on the next slide, maybe, I think.
Thank you so much, Alex, and thank you, everyone. I know we're getting a lot of questions in the chat box right now. They're going very quickly. So I just moved over a Q&A box. We have another minute or so here. Let me just see. And if I don't think we won't get a chance to answer them all now, but we'll be sure to try to follow up with more information for some of these questions. So if you just put your question in the Q&A box, we will save those and get to those in an email to you after. Thank you. Just as we wrap up here, I do have a few notes. First off, one second here. As I mentioned at the beginning, we know that many teachers around the world are facing new professional challenges, including teaching virtually for the first time. And for that very reason, we are hosting a series of 3 special webinars in collaboration with George Mason University, presented by Joan Kang-shin, who's one of the authors, or who's the series editor for the Our World series. And the first one will take place tomorrow, actually at this same time. We'll be offering each session twice in one day to try to accommodate as many time zones as possible. And Joan and her colleague Jared Borup will be sharing plenty of platforms that are free that you can use for teaching online and to help you make that transition that I know many teachers around the world are faced with right now. So we really hope you can join us tomorrow to learn more about those resources too. And also, I do just want to note that she did publish a blog post on our In Focus blog that goes through some of the tips in her first webinar that she'll be presenting tomorrow. And you can actually view that right now. There's a great infographic to go along with it too. It's on the In Focus blog. I just put the link in there right now. So definitely be sure to check those out for some great takeaways. I also do want to note that we will be sending you an email with the demo credentials to the Our World Learning Management platform, and that will be coming in about 3 business days. So be on the lookout for that. We will be sending you some credentials so you can test out the platform that Alex did show in his session today. That's the online learning platform for both Look by National Geographic Learning and Our World Second Edition, which are both series for young learners of English. So we'll be sending you more information on that too. And you can always contact your local National Geographic Learning representative to learn a little bit more too. I'm going to just put a link box in here right now, and you can browse too If you click that button, it's up at the top of the screen to learn more about Look or Our World and specifically about the online learning platform there. Great. And we hope you join us again. Like I mentioned, we do have a webinar coming up tomorrow for this special Teaching Online for English Language Teachers session with Joan and Jared, but we do have our regular scheduled webinars that will be going on through May, and we're really going to continue to bulk up more webinar sessions and feature them because we know many teachers are home right now and teaching virtually, so we really want to support you in this. And as I noted earlier, we will be sending along a certificate for joining us today, the slides, as well as the recording for this session. And I'll be combing through the chat box and these questions. I know so many great ones are coming in to make sure we get back to you about those as well too. But we really just thank you for taking some time out of your day to spend it with us. And Alex, anything else you want to mention here?
No, I think that's everything. Like Emily said, it is a difficult time with obviously everything that's going on, but we thoroughly recommend those webinars of Joan and Jared in the coming days. But no, it's been a pleasure talking to you guys today, and I would say keep safe and good luck with your classes moving online.
And thank you again just to everyone for being part of the National Geographic learning community. It's great to see you all come out and all share ideas here together. Please do connect with us. We always post updates about new webinars, blog posts, teaching tips weekly on our Facebook page, as well as our LinkedIn page as well too. And then our YouTube page has plenty of videos, all of our previous webinars on there. Be sure to check it out and connect with us. All right, I'm going to send everyone to a feedback survey now. Love to hear what you thought. So if you have a moment, it'd be great if you could fill that out. All right, thank you everyone. Have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, and really hope we see you soon.